Hi there, this is Irv Shapiro with Make with Tech. And I really haven't done a review in a bit of time because there was nothing that excited me. And at this point, after working on the channel for about 4 years, I select things carefully. Then two events came together. Creality reached out to me to do a review of the Falcon 2 Pro, which is a $1,900 professional or semi-professional grade laser printer. A laser printer you might use to build a business. And my granddaughter, you can see her name on the sign behind me. My granddaughter is getting married in about a week. And she asked me to do some things for the wedding. So I'm going to take a different approach at this review. I'm going to walk through this device and we'll talk about the features and my thoughts about those features. But I'm also going to think about whether I could use it to build a business. A business where I sell products created on this laser directly to consumers. So stay tuned and let's learn something together. Okay, let's get started building a business. So the first question is, once we make earrings or we make hot plates or we make luggage tags or we make coasters, where are we going to sell these? Well, there's a marketplace. There's a website called Etsy that specifically is designed to help you sell handmade goods. Let's take a look at Etsy for just a second. So if you go to Etsy.com, you'll see they're selling a variety of things here. They're selling earrings for $13, earrings for $6, bookshelves for $160. There's a range of items with different prices. In fact, when you make a list of the top 10 items that are sold on Etsy, just Google top 10 items sold on Etsy, you'll find that 6 of them could have been made with this laser cutter engraver. So it seems like Etsy and the Creality Falcon 2 Pro are partners, ideal partners. But how would you go about doing it? Well, let's look at a specific case to give you an example. So if we look at Etsy at wooden leaf earrings, you'll see there are a variety of price points. These sell for $29, $30. And 176 people have given this design 5 stars. These up here sell for $18. 1,500 people have purchased these earrings. Now, if you look at one of these earrings, you'll see very often that you have the earring itself, the item that you're going to cut out of some material. You have the earring hanger. Those are really very inexpensive in quantity. Then you need a box to put it all together, and you're going to have to pay for shipping and handling. Of the material costs, do you know what the most expensive item might be? It's that box. It's the item you wrap it in. You know what the most expensive overall item is in your costs? It's shipping. So the cost of actually making the earring is not the most expensive component of this item. It's the packaging and the shipping. Now, perhaps you want to make earrings that look like these. This one was cut out of wood. This one was cut out of acrylic. But you're not very artsy. Well, guess what? On that same site, on Etsy, you can buy the designs. So let's go over here as an example to this site And this site is Hanuk Design. There are over 1,500 designs on this site of a wide range of items. And you'll see they're listed at $5, $6, $3, $4. Why? Because you're not buying the item, you're buying an SVG file, which is suitable for use on a laser or a Cricut machine or various other types of manufacturing. So let's take a look at one of these as an example. This one right here, where the file sells for $4.48. The example shown here is actually cut out of leather, one of the materials you can cut with this laser. How do you know you can resell something you make with this design? Well, you have to look at the fine print. So if we look down here, we'll see under no circumstances may you share or sell my file designs in any way. Okay, so you can't resell the files. But please feel free to sell items you've made with the design. So that means that for $4.48, I can download a design that I can use an unlimited number of times to make items. Items that I sell right here on Etsy. Now, what's it cost to sell on Etsy? Well, let's look at that a bit together. Now, if you're going to absorb the cost of shipping and these other fees, then the total that Etsy will cost you is about 25% of your item cost. So you'd make, in that case, about $15 on this item sold on Etsy. This all also depends on the weight of the item, the way you ship the item, and as I mentioned, the way you package the item. So with earrings, it's very inexpensive to ship them. We can sell our items on Etsy. We can buy our designs on Etsy. But can this laser do the job? First, let's look quickly at the specs overall of this laser. So it's a 40-watt laser, but it can also run in 20 watt. It's actually 22-watt mode. And what's the difference? Well, inside these lasers are diodes. The more diodes, the higher the wattage. It can cut items, it can handle items that are up to 400 millimeters by 415 millimeters and about 265 millimeters high. Now, there are ways to go higher by raising this up, which I've actually done in this case, and by taking out this drawer. This drawer under the laser catches the scraps. In addition, they bundle in a little mini laser. They actually laser in here, but this is a 1.6 watt laser. Now, if you have a 40 watt laser here, why would you want to use a 1.6 watt laser? Because the higher the wattage, the larger the dot size. So if you want to do very fine engravings with very small dot sizes, you can replace that laser, which can work in 40 or 22 watt mode, with this 1.6 watt laser. One of the advantages of this laser is at 40 watts, it can cut almost a 3/4 inch piece of pine. That's quite a bit of material. It can cut through stainless steel. It can cut through acrylic. 1/8 inch and 1/4 inch acrylic is not an issue at all. It can cut through a variety of different thicknesses of plywood in different materials. So this is a very versatile machine. This machine also has built-in airflow exhausts. So there's a fan built in that goes to a flexible pipe, which is like a dryer hose that you can stick out a window. In my case, I've stuck it out to another fan that is exhausting out of my shop here. One of the features that makes this more of a pro-style, professional-style laser is included with the case. So you can see that you can slide this open easily. Therefore, it doesn't take a lot of space. You don't have to open it this way. But mounted in the top of this laser, right over here on this bar, so it doesn't move with the top, mounted on the top is a camera. So you can use that to position your work product your design on your work product, which allows you to use materials more efficiently. The alternative way is to use what's called framing, and I'm going to show you a quick demonstration of that in a few moments. In addition, built into this printer are bars that support your work product. They can be spaced in a variety of ways, either laid flat or laid vertically. But, you know, when doing very small items, sometimes they fall through the bars. And I don't mind waste product falling down into this drawer, but I don't want my work product to fall into that drawer. So you still can use a traditional third-party honeycomb on top. Now, let's talk about how you would set this up. So there is open source software you can use, free software you can use with this. I wouldn't do it. You're going to pay $1,900 or so, maybe a little less, if it's on sale for this laser. If you're going to use it to build a business, you should use commercial software. And the commercial software that most people use nowadays for lasers of this class is called Lightburn. Lightburn basically sells for $60 a year, but it's an unusual license. For this style of laser, you pay $60. You get a full year of support and full free upgrades. At the end of the year, you can keep using it, but if you want the upgrades, you have to renew for another $60. So effectively, it's $60 a year. So let's take a look at Lightburn for a minute. When you first install it, it's going to prompt you to attach your laser. So you're going to need to turn on the laser and connect it via a USB cable to your computer. Now, if you look at the front of your laser, there are very few controls. There's the ability to move the laser head around. That's these controls here. There's the ability to home, which is something you should do before every print. And there's the ability to frame. Now, what is it going to frame? It's going to frame whatever is on this SD card. And a limitation of the local printing, which you can do with this printer, is it'll only look at the first file. So if you want to use this printer to print a file, let's say a file that came on the little SD card that came with the printer, and that file produces this Creality character, you have to take everything else off the SD card, put that file on here, insert the SD card, make sure the door is closed, and then home your printer and press frame. And it will show you with a light beam where that printer is going to print. Normally, you cannot run the frame feature while the printer door is open. But there is a capability to disable both the sliding drawer underneath, which has an interlock, and the cover interlock. And the reason you'd want to do that is if you're using a rotary cutter, you may need the space. So right behind this label here, there are two buttons. And one of those enables or disables the drawer, and the other enables or disables the rotary top. So if those are pressed in, you can then use the laser with the top open. So if I go ahead and hit frame, it's going to move the laser to where it would print this item, and we'll see it's going to go right to the center because it's designed to print it in the center. So when you're drawing without actually engraving around an item, that is called framing. Now when you're ready to print, you don't turn frame off and then press print. While it's framing, you just press print and it'll start engraving. But we're not going to use this in local mode. We're going to use this device in connected mode, connected over this USB cable to Lightburn. So if I click on device here, you'll see it's already connected. But if it wasn't, I could click on Find My Laser. When I say Find My Laser, you have to make sure that your laser is connected to a traditional USB-A connector. I found it doesn't work reliably if you go USB-C to USB-C. Now, after you connect the laser, if you're going to want to use the camera, you have to take and go to Laser Tools and follow the instructions to calibrate the camera lens and calibrate the camera alignment. When you're doing these steps, you should have the door open because you want as much light as possible. And you should push the print head all the way to the back and then just slide it side by side, but leave it in the back because the light is actually right here in this bar. And so if the print head is up here, it's blocking the light and you won't be able to calibrate it properly. Now, calibrating the camera lens requires that you have a special pattern. And you'll see there's a card that ships with this laser with this pattern on it. I lost mine. So fortunately, Lightburn allows you to print another one. To use that pattern, you take the large piece of plywood that was shipped with this printer, you put the pattern in the middle, and then you're going to move this around on the bed. And it will show you in the wizard how to do that. Then to align the camera, you're going to actually use the laser to engrave a pattern on a piece of paper, and then looking through the camera, identify where these points are. Those two steps are tedious. You may find yourself doing them multiple times, but they're necessary to properly use this camera. Okay, we're ready now to make a print. So we're going to take a board and we're going to put it in the middle of our laser. Now, before starting a print, we need to ensure the laser is focused. Since this is a fixed focus laser, the act of focusing consists of ensuring the distance between the base of the laser and the material is correct. To do that, you use a focusing adjustment block. Using this block is quite simple. You loosen these two thumb screws so the laser can move up and down easily. Then you slide the block under the laser based on the height written on the block. The thickest one is 1 to 3 millimeters, the middle distance is 4 to 6, and the tightest distance is greater than 6. Then you tighten the thumb screws up and you remove the block. That will ensure that the focus is appropriate for the thickness of the material. We're then going to turn on the laser and hit home. Just to get us calibrated in the right position. Now, you'll notice that I have an item called camera control showing up on my screen. If you don't have that item, you go to this top bar, you right click in the bar, and you click on camera control. And you'll see it shows up there. Then you have to select the Creality camera that you configured with the wizard earlier. Now, once you have the camera control showing, you can click on Update Overlay, and you should see that show up right here. This tends to be a bit buggy. If it doesn't work, shut down Lightburn, start it up again, make sure your camera, which has a separate USB cable, I failed to mention, is plugged in, and then you should see your image on the screen like we're seeing it here. Now we can use this to position our image. So we're going to take and cut out an earring. So let's take and go to import. And we'll import one of these earrings. And you'll see that 2 came in. We just want 1, so I'm going to select that and delete it. I'm going to select this earring. I'm going to move it to over here. And now we have to decide how much power to use for the laser and how fast to move the laser printhead. So to do that, I'm going to go back to my browser. I'm just going to type in Wiki Creality. A wiki is sort of a blog, a site. The Creality Wiki has valuable information. Now, some of this information is also on the SD card that ships with the laser, but the latest information will be on the wiki. So we're going to go to Laser Engraver, the 40-watt Creality Pro recommended parameters. And the top is for engraving. We want to actually cut, and so we're going to cut 3mm basswood. It recommends you go at 100% power. You can see here this is power. And 850 millimeters per minute. So let's go back to Lightburn. I'm going to double click on this item. I'm going to say 850 here. 100% power. I'm going to leave air assist on because we're cutting. Theoretically, I should be able to just home and cut. But I want to make sure this is working properly. So I'm going to click on frame. Nothing's happening when I click on home. Why? Well, there's a bug in interaction between Macs and Lightburn. May exist in Windows, may not. When you have the device set to auto, it doesn't work. You have to have it set to the USB modem port. And now you can see it homed. And now I can click on frame. And we can see where it's going to actually cut. And that'll cut right out of the middle. So now I can click on start. And we are cutting our earring. Okay, it's done cutting that earring. I'm going to let the fan run for another second. I'm going to open this up, take out our item, and it cut all the way through. And all the little pieces fell down below. And we just cut out our first earring. Now, there's a little bit of scorching on this, and one of the curly cues just dropped off. So I think I need to either increase the speed or reduce the power a bit. For this particular wood, it was a little bit too hot. But that's all there is to using this laser. So now, let's look at some of the things I've already made with this laser. Well, the first one is this beautiful sign behind me. That is 1/4-inch acrylic letters that I cut out on this laser and then super glued to a mirror. You could super glue it to a white board, to a piece of glass. Mirrors are more expensive. That's the look my granddaughter wanted. Now let's look at some other items. So here's a piece of leather. And you'll notice there are a bunch of lines here. That's because I had the power for framing turned too high. It was at 3%, which is what you use on the 22-watt laser. I had to reduce it to 1% on this laser. But the actual engraved surface is beautiful. And this laser is capable of both engraving and cutting out leather. So I could buy pre-cut leather tags like these, or I could buy sheets of leather and make luggage tags out of them. Let's look at this next item. In this next item, I used 2 different power settings. One for the lines around this logo, and one for the inside of the logo. And these could be coasters for a company. Next, In addition to this wood earring that we cut out, I did some samples of cutting out earrings in acrylic. Now, when you cut earrings out of acrylic, there's an extra step you're probably going to have to take, and that is the outside edge does not look great. It's a little bit rough. When you're cutting them out of wood, that outside edge is black, which looks pretty good. So there are a variety of ways you can treat the outside edge. You can sand and polish them, which is what I did for this earring, but that's going to add about 10 minutes to each earring of work. You also can experiment with different power settings. If you use a higher power and a slower speed, you'll get more melting, which is a benefit because it'll make the edge smoother. So that's something you can experiment with. Now, how do you experiment? Well, you experiment by using the material tool in Lightburn. And the material tool will cut squares like this, where across one axis you have the power setting and then the speed, and then you can look and see at what power and speed you get the best results. Using a laser like this to produce goods is going to require some trial and error, and it will depend on the particular materials and the brand of the materials. Now, what can't you cut on this laser? You cannot cut glass. Glass will allow the beam just to travel through. You can engrave glass, but to engrave glass, you have to coat the glass with another material first, which will absorb the heat of the laser. So I've begun to experiment with that. This is just a sheet of glass, and I've sprayed it with a Rust-Oleum gray paint. And I've tried engraving a number of different settings on here, and I don't have it the way I want yet. And people experiment with a wide range of coatings for engraving glass on diode lasers. And I will be doing a video on that, a video on setting up your Etsy store, a video on using the rotary attachment to engrave water bottles and other items. Now, there's one other type of material that you should not ever engrave on this laser or cut on this laser, and that's PVC. If you've worked with a Cricut machine, those are PVC vinyl cutting machines that people use for making lots of personalized items. They often use vinyl materials. When you heat up vinyl with a laser, it gives off chlorine gas. That'll kill you. That's really dangerous. However, there are companies, and this company is Siser, S-I-S-E-R, that do make special plastic sheet materials that you can use with a laser, specifically a diode laser, and you can use to heat transfer lettering, let's say, to sweatshirts. So you could use this laser to make signs and shirts and apparel, but you have to make sure you do not use PVC. So what did I learn in this process? Well, number one, this is an industrial grade piece of equipment. The things I didn't like about this is this, while this works, it sticks a little bit. It's not very, very smooth. It does make it easy to use. One of the other things it does, though, it makes it harder to use a particular feature. I mentioned that this laser can be used in both 40 watt mode and 22 watt mode. The way you change that is there's a little button on top of this laser, and you press and hold it, and a light comes up that says precision. You can't see that light, unfortunately, when this door is closed. So to check that your laser is in the right mode, precision or normal, you have to open this up. I also found that the grid, the fences for very small items, wasn't ideal, but I just put a honeycomb on top when using it in that mode. Finally, If you're using the laser and you trip one of the alarms, let's say you open up the door because you want to take a quick look, and before you do that, you should put on your safety glasses because the laser won't be covered properly anymore. But if you want to do that, it's going to cause a fault. And when a fault is triggered, you have to actually power cycle the laser in order to clear the fault. There are switches, as I mentioned, in the front here, which you can use to turn off that feature. I recommend you don't. Overall, I've been delighted with this laser. It's done a good job in the things I need, and I'm excited to research on Etsy which are the items that have the highest margin with the least amount of work. So as an example, I could make earrings out of wood, out of acrylic. I could make earrings out of leather or other materials. I can experiment with a range of materials, and then I have to look at what the price elasticity is. How much can I sell it for? How heavy is it to mail? It does seem like jewelry is one of the items with the highest margins on Etsy. Well, folks, thanks for watching this video. I hope you learned about this laser. I hope you learned about a little bit about Etsy. If you want to learn more, go to makewithtech.com. If you want to ask questions, go to forum.makewithtech.com. And folks, let's continue to learn things together.